Now, there's more than one way to do it, but in today's video, we're going to be talking about the top 3 ways I personally see people shank golf balls the most, and things we can do to look to alleviate that. So number 1 for me is when people swing to what I call linear. So what I mean by linear is, if I look at where the butt end of the golf club starts life, and I trace that position to the top of the swing, we need depth in the golf club. So that is how much the golf club moves behind us, so the golf club can swing back and through on a circular arc. When I get to linear, or to, should we say, upright with the golf club, that can make me come very steep, or sometimes even over the top onto the golf ball, and that can represent the hosel, so the shank of the golf club, onto the golf ball upon my return into impact. Now, before we talk golf swing, there's 2 main checkpoints I would look for at the setup with someone who swings like this that can influence that type of movement. So number 1 is distance away from the golf ball. People who stand too linear will either stand too close to the golf ball so they can't turn. They can also actually stand too far away from the golf ball and really kind of hack up and down at the golf ball as well. So a really cool bulletproof way to check ball position, or should I say distance away from the golf ball, is if I was to pop this golf club down like so, I want to be standing so that the back of my heels are an inch away from the back of this golf club. If I now pick up my golf club, I now know factually that I'm the correct distance away from the golf ball, and that's a little trick that you can use for all your irons and wedges. Second port of call for me would be the posture. So what we'll commonly see, and this can often be a misconception as well, is how people think they should take the posture is with their chest out, bum out type approach. But what that will do is that will really create a strain or an arch in the lower back, which will really inhibit any kind of turn in the golf swing, something which is crucial to create depth in the handle to stop this linear swing. So a really good way to take the posture is, instead of taking the posture by going hips first, knees second, and you can see how that arching almost becomes natural, we want to flip that round and feel like we bend our knees to start with, and then we take our hip bend from there. You'll see a much softer lower back. The upper back might be fractionally more round as well, and in general this creates much better pelvic movement and thoracic movement throughout the golf swing to take away from that linear swing that we might need to eliminate. So now we've ensured we are the correct distance away from the golf ball, we have appropriate posture. All we need to do now is just think about rotating. And a cue I quite like to use is to think about the sternum, whether that be zips on your top, buttons on the top. Can you just think about rotating your chest towards the camera there? That's going to turn the upper body, in turn, turn the lower body, and get this handle operating a little bit more behind you, so you're now creating that nice circular move, that nice circular arc in the golf swing back and through, and find the sweet spot much more commonly, rather than being straight back and straight through, presenting the shank that way. Now, the number 2 cause as to why people might shank the golf ball is someone who is a lifter. Can be closely linked to number 1, that linear move. But essentially what I mean by lifter is, if I was to draw a line above my head, as I make a swing to the top, I would not want to lift above that line. What happens is, when I lift my head, is I not only lift my head, but I will really now look to flatten off the shoulder plane. So in an extreme case, we can stand bolt upright, my shoulder plane can be pretty much parallel to the ground. What will happen is I won't stay there, because if I did, I'd miss the ball. We want to find the ball. So what will happen is you will now re-steepen the shoulders, and again that can re-steepen the club shaft, that can re-throw the handle over the top, and again that can also influence that shank strike, that hosel strike that we want to avoid. Now, similar to the first point, I would definitely be ensuring I'm stood the correct distance away from the golf ball. It's not too far or close, so you can use that little drill that we spoke about before just to ensure that. But a really good little drill that we can use to give ourselves the correct feeling, the feeling not lifting, is to stand roughly half the club away from the wall, pop the club across your chest with, again, the grip side just sticking out your lead side, so the left side, and make some swings in your golf posture, feeling like this club is operating underneath the wall there. Now, if I stand up, you can see how I'm going to flatten off the shoulders and hit that wall every time. But if I can learn to get that golf club rotating underneath the wall, I'm going to learn to create a nice functional non-lifting golf swing from there. And number 3, which in my opinion is one of the most common faults in people shanking the golf ball, and it's quite frequently linked to points either 1 and or 2, is a really open club face coming into the hitting area. So my main ports of call are at setup and the way the golf club is taken away. Now, the number one big one at setup for me is the grip. One of the biggest influences at setup, in my personal opinion, as to how it links to the club face. So making sure that when we are gripping the golf club, really looking at a lead hand here is relevant to a square club face. That crease in between the thumb and the index finger wants to be pointing up towards my right armpit. Anything left, and especially left of the sternum, is going to influence a very open club face at impact. So number one, we want to make sure the grip is nice and neutral. And when we're taking the golf club away, we want to make sure our takeaway move is to roll the forearms into a position where the club face is looking quite towards the sky. If I maintain that, and especially if I increase that, this is what the golf club will look like coming back down into the golf ball. And again, you can see how it's really leads into those shank shots. So once we have an appropriate grip, a little thing I quite like to give to people who really struggle with this open club face, this rolling of the forearms takeaway, to get them set up and just hit some little hip height to hip height, essentially chip shots, feeling like the club face is looking at the golf ball back and through. So they would normally look quite like this and hold it on the way through, whereas we want the golf club to look more like so, and holding that through into impact from there. Once they've got used to that, they can start to remember that feeling. The feeling is what we're trying to train here, and then they can lengthen that into more of a fuller swing from there. Like we say, we've gone through a few really good points there as to how people might shank the golf ball. It's important to understand that there definitely isn't one way to shank the golf ball, something I always thought, but there's multiple ways to shank the golf ball. They are just the top three covered in my opinion. But if you want a really simple, surefire way to get rid of those shanks, something really easy and really effective, it's quite simply just get an object, put it about half a club width away from the golf ball, so the golf ball is just fractionally outside the toe, and just learn to hit some shots, starting small and then building up, whereby we don't hit that golf ball. It's a nice, simple, task-orientated way, which is going to train you to move in whatever way it is you need to move to miss that golf ball and strike the golf ball more out the middle every time. So some really good points covered there for you shankers, some really good drills for you to go and use. Any questions, drop a comment down below or hook me up on the socials. Until next time, go enjoy your golf.
When I get in, I take a shower, read a book and feel empowered. Smoking on that sour got me counting down the hours, thinking of all the shit that they could do but won't allow us. Then I realized they all some cowards. The world is ours. Me and my brother twin like the towers, and we want it now, never later. No more favors, done with all these traders.